The Ugly Stepsister. Now, this is directed by Emily Blichfeld. I could be saying it wrong. Blichfeld, probably one of those two. I believe this is a Norwegian production, but I think there's Swedish in there, there's Polish, there's a lot of different aspects, but it's Scandinavian for sure. And I was concerned when I first saw this, only because the poster, once again the poster is like the foot, like Cinderella is kind of a slipper or the shoe with a bloody toe, bloody at the toe of the foot, and like a big cleaver next to it. And then in pink letters, kind of script letters, it says the ugly stepsister. And I'm like, okay, this could be a really cheesy, over the top. I was really concerned because I thought, oh, this is gonna be like this whole new wave of fairy tale, like old out of the into the public media properties that are all becoming these super slapdash horror movies, like the whole Winnie the Pooh. I don't really calling it the dark fairy tale universe. I don't know. They have some term for it. Winnie the Pooh and Peter Pan and Bambi, and they're trying to do all these things, and it's a really cheesy, really quick, slapped together horror movies that are just not good, in my opinion. This movie is its own thing. If you know anything about the Grimm's fairy tales, you know that they are quite dark and violent, much more so than the versions that get put out by Disney or whomever. And if you know specifically Cinderella, I was always aware of this, but I think I just went back this week and read it because I wanted to make sure how much I remembered of it. But if the original Cinderella, when the prince is running around trying to find the person who was Cinderella, who fits the shoe, the stepsisters and stuff are like chopping off their toes and things to try to fit into the shoe to make sure they can get in there. And that had to have been kind of the inspiration for this movie. This movie goes a lot farther. That should give you a little more of an idea of kind of the inspiration and the reason that this movie might be the way it is. I talked earlier about all these kind of dark fairy tale version crappy movies that are being made these days. This movie is much more a ugly stepsister to the substance than it is to those movies. So if you want something as a touchstone, something like Titan or The Substance, these kind of really in your face versions of kind of women's and lives and the roles women have to play or are expected to play, and kind of really taking a very violent and very interesting approach to it, then this movie is more along those lines. Now, this does a little different than those movies, and it does it in a different way, but I kind of appreciate a similar DNA there. Basic concept is what you might think it is. It is like the story of Cinderella. You have a woman who marries into a quote rich family, and she has two daughters, Alma and Elvira. And Elvira is the main one we're following here. And those are the quote ugly stepsisters. And Cinderella, his name isn't Cinderella in the thing, her name's Agnes, but that's basically Cinderella. Agnes is the daughter of the guy that already lives in the rich house, who is taking in the mom and the two daughters, Alma and Elvira. So she's taking in they're taking in these two girls, and then she's like obviously kind of threatened, and there's kind of a little bit of a, I don't know, antagonism between the two. The opening setup, you're thinking like, oh, the way they're setting this up is, Alma, quote Cinderella, is going to be the spoiled, rich, beautiful woman who's going to get everything, and we're just totally going to be sympathizing with the kind of trod upon, wants to be liked, but no one likes her because she's not as beautiful Elvira, the quote ugly stepsister. You're going to feel like she's going to be the one we're going to following and be the whole most sympathetic to. I guess in the overall kind of approach to the movie, that's kind of true, but also it's much more complicated than that because I think this movie is more about how the really, I guess, monstrous and terrible standards and the people that are the adults in this world, the men and the women. The women are complicit with the horribleness of the whole world, and the men are definitely driving the whole world. And I think in a sense this movie is kind of like how these women are basically especially Elvira, our main character, are essentially kind of like transformed into monsters. They're become ugly partly because of their own like desire to be something that they're not, actually meant to be. and the pressure to be that as well. So it's outside and internal. So it's partly their quote fault, and it's also the fault of the world around them. And either way, it basically transforms and twists Elvira. So basic story though is they get there, the father immediately dies, so all you have left is stepmother, quote Cinderella, and then the two stepsisters. Alma and Elvira. Alma doesn't do a whole lot. She's there. But Elvira, though, immediately, she is in love with the prince, as you might expect. And the prince has this book of poetry that she reads all the time. And she's one of those kind of pie in the sky, dreaming of this guy. All her whole life, she's dreaming of how it'll be. And you get a few of those little sequences. She's going to do everything she can to be the most beautiful woman in the land, and she's gonna be the one that he picks because they're gonna, of course, have a quote ball. All the things you're expecting, but the way it's done, I can't describe it without you experiencing it. It is obviously a satire and to some degree, and a commentary to some degree on the way that plastic surgery and all these various like physical tortures to some degree people put themselves through currently to become that whatever standard of beauty they think they want to become. In this movie, they're taken to a very medieval extreme of that. And this is where the horror comes in. So first of all, there's a psychological horror of just seeing a person unravel. It's almost like an origin story for a villain for Elvira, which is quite awesome as well. But on top of that, every different effort she takes, I'm purposely not describing them, because if you're a horror fan, you're going to enjoy this. If you're not a horror fan, do not watch this movie because it might sound like it's just kind of this cheesy allegory, but it goes hard in the gore department. And that's the part that you might not understand if you haven't gone in with a horror mindset. But if you like horror movies, especially horror movies that don't shy away from being gory, this movie will give you some payoff. Will it be constantly gory all the way throughout? This is not as over the top in that sense as The Substance, but in the same way the substance would have, I don't know, like a scene with a needle and really like let you watch it, this movie has moments where it really lets you watch it. And I'm not going to tell you what those moments are because they're very fun to discover. But let's just say you can imagine various beauty elements that a woman might want. And if you were in much older times and not able to achieve them with modern plastic surgery, how would you achieve those effects? Well, they achieve them in very brutal ways, and we watch them. And some of the brutal ways are performed by supposed experts, and some of those brutal ways are performed by just the sheer imagination and ingenuity and tenacity of Elvira. And Elvira, oh my gosh. Earlier I was talking about the character of Trent, played by John Fleck, and I think he's be Academy Award nominated for Dead Male. I gotta put the name of the Elvira down. Myron, Leah Myron as Elvira. She puts on a performance here, and she is so driven and so angry and so like, I mean, disturbed and so unhappy. And when she goes through pain, she can scream like, I mean, it's a fantastic performance, fantastic central performance by Leah Myron. The Ugly Stepsister, another 4.5 star for me. Both this one and Dead Male could go up to 5 stars, but I love these movies both, and they both go on my best of the year so far list. I think that fans of horror, a certain kind of fan, a fan that's looking for a certain kind of movie, like I said before, if you liked movies like The Substance, not as quote fun as that, but definitely as audacious in a lot of ways. It's just not quite as stylishly, crazy. But boy, there's some good stuff in the Ugly Stepsister. And I want to say there's a final, let's just say, in the classic story, there's the moment where the stepsister wants to show that she can fit into the shoe to the prince. And that moment is coming to play for Elvira. And the way that kind of denouement and kind of transformation occurs for her is is quite fantastic. Some people might be a little bit upset about a kind of an abrupt ending here. I appreciate it. And then there's a final shot that I really appreciate. And partly that is because of, I think about how the original story ends, and I think it's kind of a nod to that. There's also a post-credit sequence. It's not necessary to see, but it's kind of a fun joke, an ongoing joke about the father, the basically absent father, but not absent father through the whole movie. there's kind of a joke about what he's been up to the whole time, and you kind of see the final, I guess, quote, payoff of that.
Hey guys, thanks so much for watching this video. For more movie and television reviews and interviews, please subscribe to my Deepest Dream channel. Like, comment, share, subscribe. And as always, thanks so much for your support. Take care.